everybody. Okay, so today we're going to actually use one of the formulas that we talked about yesterday. Okay, we talked about distance and midpoint. Today we're just going to apply the midpoint formula to be able to solve these kind of problems. Okay, so this comes from your state standards. So learning goal number 3 is I can use coordinates to find the midpoint or endpoint of a line segment. Okay, we're already halfway done with completing this goal. Okay, so we can find the midpoint, but now we're going to talk about how to find the endpoint of the line. Okay, so this one, it's not that hard, but it is a lot of steps. Okay, if you know the steps, memorize them. Okay, it won't take as long, but the more practice you do, the quicker you're going to be at it. Okay, but I do have this little sheet of paper on Canvas if you want to print it out. If not, you don't have to. Okay, you can just draw it yourself, because this is the only kind of guided notes that you're going to need to print out for this lesson. Okay, and we're going to do it step by step. So the midpoint of segment GH is M -6, 1. One endpoint is G -8, 2. What are the coordinates of the other endpoint? Okay, now we're not going to use the midpoint formula. We can't just plug in things into the midpoint formula and solve for the midpoint, because we're not finding the midpoint. We're trying to find the endpoint. Okay, so to find the endpoint is a different process than you would if you were trying to find a midpoint. That was a lot of points. Okay. So if you're given a problem like this and you want to find an endpoint, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start with the midpoint formula. Okay. So I'm going to write my midpoint formula in these little things. I'm going to do x1 plus x2 all over 2, y1 plus y2 all over 2. It's kind of crooked, I apologize. Okay, the next step is you're going to use the midpoint that they gave you. So M -6, 1. And I'm putting this on the side so we know. Okay, so you're going to separate the expressions for each coordinate to create two equations. So if I know my midpoint is -6, 1, okay, can I set this whole thing equal to -6 if we know that whatever x value comes from this is going to equal to -6? Yes. So you're going to take x1 plus x2 all over 2, and you're going to set that equal to your midpoint, which is -6. Okay, because in the outcome, your midpoint, your x value for your midpoint is going to be -6. So we can take this whole thing and set it equal to -6. Same thing with your y value. You're going to take this whole thing and set it equal to the outcome of it, which is going to be 1. Next step is you're going to substitute the coordinate of the given endpoint of x1 or y1 in each equation. Okay, so you're going to use the endpoint they give you, which is -8, 2. Okay, so I'm going to plug this in for x1 and I'm going to plug this in for y1. And I'm going to keep, I don't know the value for this, okay, so I'm going to keep that the way it is. Remember, I'm trying to find out the value of this x value, the second endpoint. Same thing over here, I'm going to plug in 2 for y1. So again, we're trying to find, we have one endpoint, we have a midpoint, we're trying to find that second end, okay? So we're trying to find that second coordinate pair. So we're trying to find x2 and y2, okay? And now that's the only thing we have left to solve on both sides. So the last step is going to be solve. Solve each equation for the missing coordinate. Okay, and you're going to always start by multiplying both sides by 2. So to solve, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 because I don't like fractions. Okay, the 2's cancel out and I'm left with -8 plus x squared equals -6 times 2 is going to be -12. Okay, I'm going to move my 8 over. So I have x2 equals -12 plus 8 is going to give me -4. So for the other endpoint, we know my x value for that endpoint is going to be -4. Now we have to find y2. And you're going to do the same thing. Multiply both sides by 2. And solve for y squared. 2 minus -2 is 0, so this is 0. So this is going to be my other endpoint. So if I draw my coordinate plane, okay, we know my midpoint is -6, 1. They gave us this first one, okay, which is G, which is -8, 2. And we just answered, and the whole question, we're trying to find the second endpoint. Okay, and after doing this process, this endpoint is going to be -4, 0. Again, it's a lot of steps, okay? It's time consuming, but the more you do it, the better off you're going to be. And I recommend when we do practice problems, okay, when you do your assignment for today, that you have this on the side and you're going through step by step what to do, okay? Because if you follow the steps and your math is correct, you're going to get it right every time. So let's do some more examples. Again, you do not have to have this chart to do it. Okay, I love color. If that's you, I recommend you use color. Okay, if not, then that's fine too. Okay, so step 1, I'm going to start with my distance formula. Not my distance, my midpoint formula. It's been a long day. Okay. Then from here, I'm going to rewrite it into an equation. So again, my endpoint is negative 1, 9. My midpoint is negative 9, negative 10. So this whole thing, if I solve this, okay, my x values is going to eventually equal negative 9. And this whole thing is going to be equal to negative 10. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to create my equations. Then from here, I'm going to plug in my values of the given endpoint that they gave us. Okay, so this is x1, this is y1. I'm going to plug that into this equation. And now is the fun part. Now all I have to do is I have to solve this equation, and I'm always going to multiply by negative, by 2. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Okay, so this cancels out. I'm left with negative 1 plus x squared equals negative 9. Move my 1 over. So x2 equals negative 9 plus 1. And what did I forget to do? I forgot to multiply this 2 by negative 9. So 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. And then I'm going to have negative 17 for x squared. And then I am going to do this side. Negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. And I'm going to go see. Okay, sorry about that. So then I'm going to do this 9. I have y2 equals negative 29. And so now I'm going to write my endpoint, excuse me. So I have negative 17 and negative 29. Okay, and that is going to be my answer. Okay, so let's do this next one. Okay, step 1, I'm going to write out my midpoint formula. Okay. Step 2, I am going to create my equation using what we know. My midpoint is 5, 1, so I'm going to set both sides equal to this side 5, this side 2, 1. Then I'm going to plug in my endpoint. So this is x1, this is y1. And then after I do that, I'm going to do the fun part, and I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, and I'm going to solve it. So I'm left with 2 plus x squared equals 5 times 2 is 10. Solve for x2. And then 10 minus 2 is going to give me 8. Okay, same thing on this side. Multiply both sides by 2. I have y2 to equal negative 3. So my other endpoint is going to be 8, negative 3. And that is going to be my answer. Okay. So again, the more you do these, the faster you're going to get. Okay, and now I want you to pause this video and I want you to try this one on your own. And when you get done, press play to see the solution. Okay, welcome back. Okay, first thing you want to do is you want to write out the midpoint formula. Then you want to use your midpoint and set each side to the corresponding value. You want to use your known endpoint and plug your values in for x1 and y1. Okay. And now I'm going to solve the equations. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So I'm left with negative 6 plus x squared equals 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm left with x2 equals 8 plus 6 is 14. And same thing on this side, multiply both sides by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Y2 equals 16 minus 4, which is 12. So my other endpoint is going to be 14, 12. Okay. So your practice problems today is just doing these practice problems over and over again. Okay, again, use these steps. Okay, follow the first page where I wrote out each one. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Have a good day.